that's not a quality life. And it's the same thing, with people who have trophies and money and all this, so they have so much, but internally, are they really actually feeling the quality of the things around them, or is it always just not enough?
Welcome back to Level Up with Lily, where we are getting 1% better every day by leveling up our health, wealth, and minds. My name is Lily. I'm your host. Please be sure to follow me on social media. That is at Level Up Lily on Instagram and at Level Up with Lily podcast. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and you can find this show wherever you stream your podcasts. Today on the show, I have a special guest, Prescott Love, also known as Archer Love. Archer Love is a plant alchemist and the founder and chief scientific officer of Now Alchemy, a company that sells nano-liposomal herbal remedies. He also is the author of Lucid Living, The Keys to Enlightenment. In our conversation, we talk all things plant medicine, as well as the mind-body connection and how he is leveling up through spirituality. Enjoy this conversation with Archer Love. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to be talking to you today.
Thank you for having me.
First off, as I ask all my guests, what are you doing to level up right now?
Well, I'm in school again.
Okay.
Yeah, studying to get my doctorate in natural medicine. Normally I'm working, physically working all the time. The ranch with horses and animals and things like that. So I'm kind of always doing stuff. So to just sit and read and study feels pretty calm to me.
What's that process been like to return to education after starting your business? And
I just got a call to continue my education. It was just like an intuitive hit from out of nowhere. It was pretty surprising, but when you get those intuitive hits, So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. If my higher self tells me I should do something, I don't argue with it. I'm like, okay. So I just decided to do it. Another thing I've been doing is blending raw. I just recently got some chickens.
Okay. On your ranch.
Yeah. And they're absolutely adorable. I love chickens. Have you spent much time around chickens?
I had some neighbors who had chickens growing up.
They're way sweeter than you would think.
Yeah.
There's something very precious about them. And I've been having, my fresh farm eggs. I put them in my coffee every morning and blend those. So that's another healthy thing I'm doing first thing in the morning. Staying pretty carb free. So that I can get the benefits of those fats and the ketones that come with them. So I'll do that in the morning with my coffee and then not really eat until around 5 or 6.
Getting into that a little bit, while we're on the subject, what is your diet like?
All natural.
Okay.
As long as it's not processed, it's good. I eat food, meats, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds. Mostly that. I don't eat a lot of grains because it has to be processed. It needs to be cooked. If something can't be consumed either raw or fermented, I don't really think that we should be consuming it. Meat, for example, you can eat raw. A lot of people say that it'll make you sick, but that's, there's conspiracies around that we can get into as well. We were just talking about Louis Pasteur, and germ theory and stuff like that. I think raw meats are really the original superfoods. And I think that industries that profit off of us being weaker don't want us to really know how beneficial it is. So I consume mostly whatever can be eaten without being processed.
That's a good rule of thumb to go with. Before we get more into this, I want to just take a step back and ask if you can share your story. What's your background? You can take this back as far as you'd like.
Yeah, I have so many stories. Which should I share, man? Well, I was born in Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay.
My father, Philip Love, he was incarcerated when I was about 2. For about 5 years, I was sort of shipped around a bit to different shelters and with different relatives and things like that. I ended up landing in Rochester, New York when I was about 6, and grew up in a really great, quaint, nice little town called Brighton, where I got to have that sort of contrast between basically fending for my life every day throughout the critical years of development to living in a very safe, nice environment with a really great education and good mentors and coaches and things like that. After graduating high school, I joined the Air Force. I was making missiles and rockets. And then I went to University of Arizona to study medicine. Mm-hmm. I worked for some doctors and realized I didn't want to go the Western route because I saw some corruption and even subconscious corruption in the field. There's a lot of money involved. And when I was doing research projects for different doctors, I saw a little bit of dishonesty that I just wasn't really comfortable with. So I graduated, but did a little bit of soul searching. I didn't know about Chinese medicine and Ayurveda and alchemy or shamanism or anything like that. So I moved to LA and was acting and modeling and just getting to know myself. And then discovered natural medicine and started my company, Now Alchemy, which I brought you some of these gifts here.
Yes,
this was my first elixir. It's called Ormus Gold. I discovered Ormus Gold about 15 years ago, and it really changed my life, changed my energy, my mind. I had anxiety and PTSD and depression, and I started taking Ormus Gold, and it really balanced me out in a big way. So I became pretty infatuated with that and learned how to make it, got back into chemistry, and I decided that was the medicine that I wanted to share. And I set out to mainstream it. And people in the field, it's alchemy, and it's sort of a hush-hush, thing. And people in the field really strongly warned me not to.
In the Western medical field?
No, in alchemy.
In alchemy.
Yeah.
Okay.
They didn't want Ormus to get out into the mainstream.
They didn't want people to know about it?
No, it's a form of gold that you can ingest that is really special. It's been used for thousands of years, but even in the West, they were treating schizophrenia and different psychological disorders with gold in psych wards for a while before they started making petroleum-based pharmaceutical medicine. And it's a thing that is very pure and very special that a lot of the old-timer alchemists that I was learning from and hanging out with just wanted to keep it as a secret. But I really wanted people to have it. And so I did mainstream it. And sure enough, now there's a bunch of fake things floating all over the internet and on Amazon and eBay. And I'm like, oh, okay, now I got to get what they're saying. But still, people who can tell the difference will see the difference. And they'll get the real thing. And I think we're living in a human collective, we're all one. I really believe separation is an illusion. In the material realm, it's obviously not, but the material realm is only 0.1% of existence. So, 99.9% of existence is energy. And I believe that we share, consciousness with the human collective. So anything I can do with the collective and for the world, I'm doing for myself too. So it's like, if I find a secret that changes my life, I just don't feel right keeping it to myself. And my perspective on the alchemists that were telling me that I should was that you're fear-based and this is a limiting belief. And this is why you're 80 years old and still sleeping on somebody's couch, because you're living in a fear-based mentality and you're bigger than this and the world is better than this, and you're not giving the world the credit it deserves. You're not giving yourself the credit you deserve. And so yeah, I actually quit everything I was doing, moved out into my car and started my business out of my car. I lived in my car for 2 years and just got rid of all sorts of distractions and anything that took me off of the path of making Ormus. I was making it a church kitchen in Los Angeles. Anything that distracted me from that, I just got rid of and just went full on into it.
I'm really interested by what you're talking about with your experience with Western medicine and feeling like it was dishonest and there was a lot of money involved. And also then this discussion of Eastern medicine and alchemy and how they wanted to keep everything so private. So interesting that you experienced that from both sides of medicine, but you're trying to then make this mainstream. What is it that...
Oh, I'm putting it in my coffee.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually great. It's got every mineral from the sea, and it alkalizes the coffee and helps make the coffee nourishing and alkalizing rather than acidic and depleting. So I was just putting some in the coffee.
Oh, very cool. Then we're witnessing a trial of it in person right now. What does it taste like?
Try some. It's yours.
Okay.
Sorry, I opened it already, but I brought it for you.
I'll try it after the recording.
Okay.
So on that topic of these two different types of medicine and not really feeling like either one, the way that Eastern and Western medicine were both operating, you didn't feel like those resonated. Is that correct to say? And you're trying to now bring alchemy and Eastern medicine more to the mainstream?
The way I see that happening right now is the left and the right are coming together. The masculine and the feminine are coming together. The East and the West are coming together. And it's like DNA, the double helix, that come together and create unity. Anything that exists has to have its opposite in order to exist, because everything exists on a spectrum, you know? So while that's like true that everything must have its opposite, eventually those things are going to come together and dance. And they're not, even though they're opposite, they're not going to be in opposition. They're going to be in more of a harmony. And that's what's happening right now. And I think that's what's happening in medicine with the West and the East. I don't think like Western medicine is bad, you know? And I don't think Eastern medicine is just all good. You know, I think that there's some good and some bad in everything. And I love what Western medicine is able to do in critical situations where it's a little bit too late to take preventative measures. And I think that Eastern medicine is really great for longevity and preventative measures, you know, living this way, putting ormus in your coffee and just doing things like this every day to keep yourself from getting sick rather than running yourself into the ground and then calling the doctor for a pill or a surgery, you know?
Yeah, I feel like that's so much of what we see in our culture right now. It's like the Western medicine, like you said, it is so important in those critical moments, but we could do so much to prevent that we're not doing.
Yeah.
And I think if we step back, where you can look and see that the way that most people operate in our culture is somewhat unhealthy, but it's just so normalized. Especially the running yourself into the ground idea, I think is just so normalized. Work yourself into the ground. Don't rest. Don't fuel your body well. All of these things that are essential to live a happy and healthy life.
Yeah, it's very normalized, but it's also praised.
Yeah.
When you think about like the people that are really prominent in the media, people who get rich or famous or whatever, a lot of people, so countless people really praise David Goggins for what he's been able to do. But at the same time, his body is like just totally messed up. And that's something that he actually sort of brags about. It's like, I broke my back and I'm still running 100 miles. It's like, wait, but you broke your back. Maybe that should be like, maybe you shouldn't be running 100 miles every day. But it's like, what are you getting out of these trophies? And what are you getting out of this money? And what are you getting out of this fame? And I think people need to come back into themselves and just like settle down and stop reaching for validation or money or whatever it is, because ultimately that's what's going to lead to injury. Spiritual injury, but physical also.
Yeah, and that's something that I've thought about a lot, because so many people assume that leveling up is that constant pushing and constant grinding. And while there are seasons for that, and there are times to be working extra hard and be, you know, really grinding on your business or your fitness or all of these goals that you can have, when it gets to be that level of destructive, then you know that you need to take a step back, and you probably should have taken a step back a while before. But you're right. People get famous online, like these particular people. And then I think a lot of other creators who just blow up, it's because they have those extremes that they're preaching, which is really not attainable for most people.
Yeah, it's definitely not actually attainable, because most of these people doing these things, they're sort of designed that way, you know, like everybody's different. And not everybody's designed to be able to handle certain amounts of stress and pressure and things. And even the people who claim to be handling it, like, I question how well they're actually handling it, you know?
Yeah.
Like behind closed doors. For example, like I like to study people. I have a degree in psychology, and I find humans fascinating. And so even if I'm not really into what somebody's doing, I'll sort of watch them talk and study them out of curiosity. And I've watched David Goggins speak quite a bit, and sort of like the way that he shuns happiness, you know, like he'll say like, people ask me if I'm happy, and I'm like, you know, what, happy? Why do I need to be happy? You know? And it's just like, okay, well, there's a correlation between health and happiness. And if you're consistently unhappy and you're just driving, then you're not healthy, because you have to be healthy in your mind and in your spirit in order to be healthy in your body. Like, they go hand in hand. And yeah, that's what it is. It's not about like how long you live, even with preventative measures and things. A lot of people are like that with their diet now too. They're on like super restrictive, super intense diets because they think it's going to elongate their lifespan. But we have to come back to like the quality over quantity thing. I'd rather live 20 amazing high vibrational years than 100 years in fear and scarcity and lack and thinking like I have to weigh myself every day. I have to do this. Or like I can't eat an apple. There's sugar in it, you know. That's not a quality life. And it's the same thing, you know, with people who have trophies and money and all this. So they have so much, but internally, are they really actually feeling the quality of the things around them, or is it always just not enough? You know, so like, yeah, like leveling up kind of is that's the quality. It's like when you get in touch with yourself and when you sort of get switched from getting what you want to wanting what you get mentality, like that's how you level up, and then your vibration increases, and then you start to attract better relationships and better people and better situations just because of that, you know.
I agree. If you're not happy in that leveling up, then are you really?
Yeah, are you really leveling up, or you just have more things?
I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that the gold has benefits for mental health. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Do you know what kintsugi is? Kintsugi is a Japanese art form where when something breaks, they repair it with gold. You know, you've seen the pottery with the gold lines, right?
I do. Now this is ringing a bell now. I have seen that before.
Yeah. So I consider in like Ormus gold like kintsugi for the DNA, where it's very small and it's actually able to absorb into the cells and interact with the DNA because it's teeny, super, super small particles. And in that form, it helps to repair the crippled telomeres of DNA. And yeah, I see it as like kintsugi. It's just like, it's like the gold is like merging and repairing and rebalancing the DNA, and it becomes more beautiful and more durable. That's like, it's theoretical, you know. That's how I see it energetically and vibrationally. Gold has superconductive properties, which isn't theoretical. And I think as above, so below. Like if you put something superconductive in your body, it's going to raise your vibration. Copper, you know, has the same effect. Consuming copper and silver as well. All of these platinum group elements, they're super anti-parasitic, antiviral, and there's a lot of scientific mechanisms for how they are anti-parasitic and antiviral, but on an energetic level, it's raising our vibration, and parasitic energy is low vibration, so it's raising our vibration. And so yeah, it kills and detoxes parasites, but also just energetically speaking, like you don't have to be a scientist to understand that if you aren't in resonance with something, that it's not going to be part of you, you know. So consuming things like gold, silver, and copper, you know, help just with boosting your vibe, you know, just leveling up.
I love that. I love a good vibe boost. And also it's very interesting, and I can see why that would help with something like PTSD or depression or schizophrenia, as you said, because of all the benefits that are taking place not only in the mind, but in the body, which I feel are so connected when you're dealing with anything like that.
Right. Another way it helps things like PTSD is cellular communication. So the superconductive properties increase our cellular communication, so helping information process faster in our body and in our brain. And when you have a trauma, it's like a barrier with communication. And when we get rid of those barriers, information's able to move and process emotional and thoughts more easily and more naturally again. So by clearing these blockages, it helps us just to be able to think faster, think more clearly, helps the memory, even helps the brain repair itself, potentially balancing the left and right hemispheres of the brain as well. I've seen studies that show that Ormus helps to balance the left and right hemispheres of the brain. Again, they're not like peer-reviewed studies, but there's studies that people can look out there, independently run studies that have shown it can do that as well. And I believe it because I've felt it. And there's a lot of things that do. Magnesium does too. Meditating does. So I don't think it's unlikely.
I wanted to get to the part in your story. So you were living out of your car, manufacturing this, and now you've grown this company. You have multiple products, and you're here. You produce everything on your ranch. What was the process like getting there? And also we can talk a little bit about your book in there as well.
Oh, so yeah.
Wherever that fits in.
Lucid Living, The Keys to Enlightenment. Shameless plug.
People can find it on Amazon?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll link that in the description. But tell about your process moving from manufacturing this in LA now to Texas.
A lot of luck. Yeah. meeting the right people. Your vibe attracts your tribe type energy. A lot of resilience, just doing the same thing every day. You know, if you go out and do the same thing every day, eventually you're gonna, break through. And for example, Infinite Waters. Have you heard of Infinite Waters? Ralph Smart. Well, yeah, I was living out of my car, and I was just like, I would go to places like Air One. You know Air One?
Yes.
Yeah, I would go to places like Air One and hang out at the tonic bar and talk to people and like introduce them to the Ormus, that way.
I feel like customers at Air One are receptive to that.
They did, yeah. Jeremy Piven was one of my first customers.
Oh, very cool.
Back when I just had this really discreet bottle that had my number and name on it. And it was like a sticker that had my number and name. I was like selling it to me. It was just like this like blue murky bottle, and like people like Jeremy Piven were just buying it.
And now we have these beautiful Ormus Gold bottles.
It's come pretty far.
Yeah.
Funny thing, Air One actually blacklisted me for selling the Ormus there.
Oh.
And then they ended up picking it up and putting it on their shelves later on. Okay. So it was a good transmutation of that. But they were like, you can't be selling products here, So that was kind of I saw that as a badge of honor. That's when you're like, when you're really, if things like that aren't happening to you, you're not putting yourself out there enough, is my opinion. You got to put yourself out there and risk being rejected and denied over and over and over again to actually have an impact eventually.
I think that's huge, especially in growing a business. You're going to experience so much rejection. And you're right, if you're not, then you are playing it safe. And right. You're not pushing as hard as you should be. But it is so full circle that they did come back and now have this on the shelves.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah, and it's like that even with having a podcast, like, you know, with doing anything, you put yourself out there and you risk, it's exposure. A lot of people are just afraid of being exposed and seen because they know that that's going to come with a certain amount of attack and hate. You know, you can't make 1,000 friends without making a few enemies. And that's just life. And that's part of the beauty of it. You know, is that the challenge and the overcoming of the fears is what makes it so worthwhile.
Well said.
Yeah. So there was a lot of those sort of events taking place between then and now. A lot of luck and a lot of rejection, you know. And
how do you get over that?
I don't really let it stick to me, so I don't really have to get over it. It just comes and goes. I don't attach to it in my mind and put stories on it and create victim stories and things like that. I just let it go, you know. It's like if you get stung by a bee, are you going to be like, wow, is there something wrong with me? Why did that bee choose me to sting me? Maybe I'm in the wrong place. And it's just like,
or dwelling
you're
on
overanalyzing. Just let it go. Stuff happens.
Yeah.
And you just got to keep moving forward, you know?
Yeah.
Dwelling on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Dwelling on it, complaining about it.
Right.
When you can't go back and change it, you can't get unstung by the bee.
Right. But a lot of people do that. And it's really, at the end of the day, it's because it's just a habit. Every way of thinking creates a groove in the brain that is a story. Like essentially every groove in the brain is a story. It's a path. And that story of I'm not worthy or the world is unsafe or people are bad or whatever it is, it will repeat itself over and over again in a variety of circumstances and situations with different words, but it's the same story. Mm-hmm. And we just have to be aware of those stories as they come up and just not agree with them and not engage with them like a bully. That's all it is, just a bully. And that's kind of how it starts, actually, is people being bullied, you know, as kids or not having the life they want as kids. Like I experienced a little bit, you know, in my childhood of that type of stuff. And it is not easy. It's hard. You know, I struggled and I fought those stories for a long time, many, many years, actually, before I decided to stop fighting them and let them go. Because as long as we fight it, we're just feeding it. Yeah. And I just had to let go of the victim stories of I wasn't, the only reason I'm not successful is because I didn't have what all these other people had as kids, or I didn't have, you know, a dad to pave my way and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I'm just crippling myself with these stories I'm carrying. Like, what good is it?
You're right, because people tell you the story first, maybe, but most of the time it's us perpetuating that story in our mind. Like, our brain is really the bully.
Yeah, eventually, right.
Yeah.
Even if we had a real bully and then we took on some of the trauma from that bully, we become the bully to ourselves if we take it on.
Because most of the time, those things that get to us, I know I have many instances in my past where I've held on to those stories that other people have put on me, but they don't remember it. They may have said it once in passing, or maybe it's someone who is bullying you, and for a few months or a year, whatever, they'll get to you and they get pleasure from that, but then they're gone. And years later, often we let ourselves continue to bully us in our minds, but letting it go is really the only way to move forward from it.
It really is. People get stuck in healing crises. Have you heard the term healing crisis?
Say more about that.
A healing crisis is when we get hurt. And so we seek healing for being hurt, but we attach to the identity of being hurt. And the process of seeking healing just becomes a habit. It's that decision. And people get stuck in the healing crisis by continuing to do things to heal themselves that are actually just reinforcing that they're still hurt eventually. There's definitely a mourning phase, and there's a period of time where when we get hurt, where we have to honor and acknowledge that, but it's a phase, and it needs to be kept short. Otherwise it'll just become a habit.
Have there been any moments for you recently in your business, in your spiritual life, in your personal life, that you have had that hurt and you've been able to overcome it, and taking any strategies? Do you have any strategies for us?
Yeah. I mean, I've been canceled. I've gotten the cancel culture stuff, people smearing me, creating lies about me. I'm Black, Native American, and Caucasian, Scotch Irish, for example, and I got canceled and smeared as a racist, and I'm literally the furthest thing from that I can imagine a person would be. And I've had other things like that happen too, that actually ended up, hurting my business and hurting my life and hurting me. And I had to remember to not attach to it, not identify with it, just to let it hurt me, and to, cry if I need to cry, be alone if I need to be alone, but do whatever I have to do to let it go and not hang on to it, and keep doing my best. Prayer is a big part of that for me. Just, praying for the truth, to constantly prevail. Praying for healing for the people that have intended on hurting me. It's one thing to accidentally hurt somebody, but to intentionally, smear, that's a form of bullying at that point. And typically it comes from jealousy. People who aren't happy with where they are see somebody else just living their dream and taking off, and they want to knock them down, because misery loves company. And so, having a background in psychology helps, that I've studied these things and I kind of semantically understand what's happening, where it's coming from. But just keeping my relationship with the Creator close, and I actually love prayer. I pray every night, pray every morning, and prayer keeps me faithful. I feel like as long as I'm praying, there's hope, And so when things like that happen, I just pray, like I said, for the path to remain clear and truth to prevail, and for me and others to be supported. And I always feel like with prayer, separating myself from others and things typically hinders the effect of the prayer, the power of the prayer. Praying for everything, not just I pray that I get better, but just pray that the world gets better. I find that really helps.
Goes full circle to the beginning of this conversation, that everything is interconnected.
Yeah, exactly.
Praying for the world, praying for others ultimately is benefiting you, but it's also a very selfless way to think, and most people don't.
Mm-hmm. The way I say it is, and I talk about this in my book, the universe is the you-inverse. So if we're putting out thoughts that, or prayers, just say we want money or something, we're praying, God, please bring me money. What we're going to get is the universe coming to us saying, give me money. Please bring me money, please. Because it's like the thoughts we're putting out are coming back. So if I'm asking for things, the universe is going to come to me asking for things, you know? But if instead, if I find that I'm in a place of financial scarcity and I just pray like, God, just like, you know, bless the world, just make sure everybody has what they need, rather than just praying for myself, bring me money, then the thoughts and in the way that this is going to be embodied within other people and come back to me is like, hey, is there anything you need? Like, hey, you need some help? You know, because I'm praying that other people get what they need. And so people can come to me. Are you getting what you need? You know? Mm-hmm. So just being really conscious with the way that I pray and think, because the universe is the you-inverse, you know?
I like thinking of it that way.
Yeah. And it feels better. It's just nicer.
Can you share a little bit more about, so we talked about your flagship product, but can you tell me a little bit more about how the rest of them came about and what you're working on now, if you're about to launch anything new, want to give us a sneak peek or anything?
Yeah. So Ormus Gold, and this is Now Alchemy Ormus Gold, by the way. So if anybody's looking for it, Now Alchemy Ormus Gold or nowalchemy.com.
We'll link that in the description.
Okay, awesome.
So anyone can find it.
Sweet, thank you. So the Ormus was the first thing that I made. As I said, I made it for like 6 years, but then I saved up some money and was able to buy some good technology and started nano-enhancing and lipomizing. And then I came out with my CBD, which is nano-enhanced liposomal CBD. And that's...
Can you explain what those terms mean for anyone who doesn't know? Yeah.
Nano means super small. So nanometers are just really, really, really teeny particles. And they're small enough to cross the blood-brain barrier, small enough to enter into the bloodstream and enter into the cell sites where they're needed to function. CBD, for example, is a large particle, which is why it's not water soluble. It's an oil and the body needs to break it up and digest it. A lot of it's wasted in the process. Sometimes all of it is wasted in the process, which is why a lot of people say, you know, CBD oil doesn't work. But when it's nano-enhanced and it's really small, it crosses pretty much completely into the blood-brain barrier, into the bloodstream, and you get the cognitive effects, the physical effects. So I started doing nano-enhancing, and then liposomal means encapsulating particles in a lipid bilayer, which is called a liposome, which helps to protect it through the gut so that the acids don't destroy the molecules, because stomach acid actually destroys nutrients, even nutrients that are good for us. Just like it kills parasites and bacteria and things, it also kills nutrients. So lipomizing it protects it while it goes into the intestines where it can be absorbed. So this Chiron's Remedy is my CBD company, because I can't sell the CBD products with the non-CBD products because of regulations. So I have chironsremedy.com for the CBD products, and those are, the CBD is grown in a very sacred fashion by the Huichol tribe, the Native American tribe. So it's a really healing.
Where is that tribe?
Well, they're in Mexico and California.
Okay.
Yeah, it's grown in California here. So it's a really healing plant from start to finish, and then it's really potent, 3,000 milligrams to 5,000 milligrams in a bottle. And then I mix it with the Shilajit and the Ormus Gold and different things for different benefits. And so it's pretty much a heal all, to be honest. CBD, when it's done correctly, like helps to pretty much heal like everything.
Are both of these something you'd use like every day?
Yes, they are. It'd be really good to use them every day.
You can drop your gold in your coffee.
Gold coffee. Mm-hmm. Rub it in your hair. It helps with hair growth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the minerals are really good for the hair.
Okay, so the way it's produced makes it easier for you to digest and break it down in your stomach, but it also allows you to just use it topically? Oh, yeah, for sure. You can definitely use it topically. Anything that's good to use, like anything that's really natural, you can use topically or internally. The skin is an organ too. Yeah, really. It's not that different. Like people see that outside of the body is very different from the inside, but like if something is good for you topically, it's normally good for you internally too. But because there's so many chemicals and toxins in skincare products, you normally can't ingest them because it's actually toxic. That shouldn't be the case. So hitting the books, still of course running your business and raising chickens, etc. on the ranch. So rescuing horses as well. Oh yes. How many horses do you have? Right now I have 3. Oh wow. And I'm creating a nonprofit to get support from the community to be able to take in more. Really? Tell us more about that.
I rescue them from kill pens and slaughterhouses. So normally when a horse is like worked, like for the Amish or a racehorse or whatever, and they start getting old or having bad joints, they get sold to slaughterhouses. And they're like middle-aged, not like old, but they'll be like middle-aged and have been working their entire life. And then they're just sold to slaughter. They ship them to Mexico and they use them for products and food and things like that. So I'm intercepting them from the slaughterhouses by buying them myself so that they don't get sold on to be slaughtered.
That's really wonderful. And this nonprofit, is it off the ground yet?
No.
Okay.
No, not yet. It takes a little while.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, I was going to say we can shout that out too, but we can share that at a later date. So
it'll probably be ready in about a month.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if you are listening to this after the fact, then we will add that to the description too. Very
Sounds good.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. Do you want to shout yourself out? Where can everyone find you, find your book, find your products?
Yeah. So my Instagram is Archer Love, which I'm pretty much on I'm on the other things, but I never get on them. So if you want to find me and what I'm doing, go to Instagram, Archer Love. My website is nowalchemy.com for all my herbal elixirs. Chironsremedy.com is the CBD elixirs. My book, Lucid Living, The Keys to Enlightenment, is available on Amazon. So just search Lucid Living, Keys to Enlightenment, Archer Love, and that'll pop up. And let me know, reach out, send me a DM if you have any questions or want to talk.